Hey there, my name is Michaela, and I'm a 28-year-old mom of 2 girls under 4.
And my name is Patty, a 34-year-old mom of 2 boys also under 4.
And we are the hosts of What's Up Mom, a podcast about kids, friendship, and navigating the always changing world of modern motherhood.
So grab that cold brew or margarita, we don't judge, and crank up those noise-canceling headphones because this week's episode starts now. Good morning!
Good morning!
Good morning! Good morning, good morning! We normally record at night, and Michaela is experiencing me at 10:30 in the morning right now, which is very different than our regular energy styles. Michaela's normally awake, and I'm normally asleep. How are you?
I'm great. We are recording today on this day of the week because now both of my children are in daycare on this day of the week. And I have all of the time in the world, which, after you get kind of settled, you find out that you really don't have all this time because it just gets taken up by things that need to be done.
Yeah, it's a great, the first day that they're at daycare, where they're both at daycare, you're like, what in the world do I do with myself? Now, if you're like me, I have a 9 to 5, okay, do that. I also work from home, but I feel like I get a lot of the inner house stuff done fast and aggressively when they're both at daycare. I don't know if you feel that.
I'm going to have to do that. I actually stopped at my Nana's house this morning and she wanted to go to Kroger, so I took her to Kroger. Next week, I'm dyeing my other grandma's hair. So when you have a day where you don't have the kids, everyone else also wants your time. My dad wants me to help him work at his shop, and my old boss is like, oh, so you can start working for us again. I said, no. Let me enjoy this first.
Yeah, seriously, give yourself a month. My God. And it's only one day a week.
Yeah, I know. And it's already almost half over because I pick them up at like 4:30.
Oh my God. Yeah, well, we'll be picking our children up at the same time today. So,
how are you?
I am just peachy keen. I am on my second cup of coffee already. Lorenzo started preschool last week, and it has just been not a big change at all. He walked right in, and I haven't had any issues dropping him off. I will say that it's like real school, so I have to be there right at 8:30, and I have to be there right at 3:30 or 4:30, depending on the day. I have him in aftercare some days, but it's definitely a change in pace for me because our previous daycare was open until 6, so it was easy
and
to...
you can drop him off a little late and he'd be fine. And
Exactly. And now it's like, you got to be there for the morning bell. I'm like, all right, this is just one of those new things that you got to get used to as a mom. Your whole schedule just gets kerfuffled come September.
Yeah, I'll tell you, making 2 lunches today. Like, I've been making lunches at night because I'm like, there's no way. There's just no way I'm going to wake up, make breakfast and lunch, get them ready, and out the door within an hour. It's just not going to happen.
I made breakfast, lunch, and dinner this morning. So I wanted to get real ahead of myself. And it was great. I know. Snaps for me. Yay. What are we chatting about today, Miss Michaela?
We are going to be talking about different parenting styles and to discipline or to not discipline. That is the question.
My God, the people that don't discipline at all, what is your life like? Are they just running around? Do they listen? Tell me your secrets. What is the weirdest or most shocking piece of discipline advice that you've ever heard?
Oh, golly. With having the Instagram page and, posting a little bit about your kids' lives and your parenting and, I get a lot. There was a video of, I posted of Cece stealing my water bottle. She was like 9 months old. It was probably this time last year. And she was 9 months old drinking out of my water bottle. So first of all, that's impressive. Secondly, she's a baby. But it was kind of like a joke. I would pull it away from her and pretend to drink and she'd rip it. It was funny. I thought it was hilarious. But the amount of people that lit me up and said, "Tell her no, put her down," or like, "You're gonna let her treat you like that now, she's gonna walk all over you when she grows up." And this happens all the time. I posted another video of the kids playing with pots and pans on the floor of my kitchen because I was trying to cook, and they just wanted to be with me, so I gave them some pots and pans, I gave them some spoons and spatulas, and they were playing, and I recorded a video, and someone said, "Just tell him to get out of the kitchen, kick him out, like, why y soft parenting," and people have such issues with just letting kids be in their vicinity.
What are you supposed to do with a 9-month-old? Like, the nothing. You can't do anything. They're little.
She's also thirsty, like, if she's drinking
Right.
my water, it's and mom's water is always better than the sippy cup water.
Absolutely. Tastes way better, even though it's from the same place, I think.
Mine's ice cold and it always has lemon, so there's always a little bit of that sweet component I think she really likes.
I think one of the craziest things that when we were, just had the one kid, I did not think that we really had to discipline Lorenzo until he was like, I don't know, had a full consciousness. And I don't really know when that starts.
Yes.
Turns out it's 4. So discipline your kids, or at least give them some boundaries before then, because I'll tell you one thing. My firstborn, stubborn AF. The little one listens a little bit more. So, and I don't know if that was because like the discipline or the boundaries that we set for Lorenzo kind of filtered through into Raphael, where he's a little bit more, I don't know, amiable with listening. But I would say that it starts before 4. It probably, I wouldn't say 9 months. I think that's a little overkill, but maybe like 1-ish. And when I say discipline, I just mean like, hey, don't do that. You don't have to let them. You just kind of pull them away, or what's the word? Where you distract them, or you like push them into another area. Redirect. That's the one. So I know that it's changed massively since we were little.
I mean, discipline, by definition, the practice of training people to obey rules or codes of behavior. And then there's you use punishment to correct disobedience. And so discipline and punishment, I think, are two different things. Oftentimes we get them confused. We think of discipline as punishment. But what it really is trying to correct, in this perspective, a behavior of a child by reinforcing what the rules are. And at daycare, they, like, by age 3, she starts implementing a timeout. And I asked her because I wanted to start doing these things at home now that, Charlotte has a little sister and she's a little more rowdy. I said, "How do you handle punishment?" She's been doing this for 20 years. She's had kids come in and out all over. And she said, "Well, when they're young, age 2, age 3, they still don't understand that when you're putting them in timeout away from their friends, that it's because of the behavior that they, exhibited to get put in a timeout. But you can start by making the connection to, you're throwing cars. We will take the cars away, throw the cars again. We're going to go sit down." And she says that always talk to them before you put them in their room or you walk them to their cozy corner. Like, talk to them and let them know why they're there. And then they sit for like a second and then they get back up and go play. Anything over like a couple seconds you just need to take them out of what their headspace is at that time, redirect, and then they return. It's not like a 5-minute timeout. So I thought that was interesting.
I like the cozy corner. I've never heard of that before.
I was going to say calm down corner, but I forgot the words.
I like it.
Charlotte's got a cozy corner chair.
Can I, as an adult, have a cozy corner? That just sounds really nice. When I do something
put a
bad.
bean bag?
Yeah, just put a big bean bag and like a really fuzzy blanket and just be like, what, you should go calm down. I'm like, okay, see you later. I'll grab him a book. I need an hour. Actually, I love it. I love when Lorenzo's like, "Mommy, you need a timeout." I'm like, you are right. You are right.
I sure do.
I sure do. You know what? Leave me alone for 15 minutes. Mommy's going to go think about what she did. It's funny.
But I think it's important because they're like, "Oh, mommy lost her shit. She's going to go recollect herself." it's important that they know that we're not perfect too. You know, sometimes we do need a timeout. It looks a little bit different. Mine usually involves a glass of wine. Um, but you know, being vulnerable to your kids like that, I think is really important.
What did you grow up with discipline wise?
Maybe we should define parenting styles, and then I can figure out what category it was. Um, Authoritative parents are parents, not friends, but they're not shy about praising kids. They're firm to warm, holding high expectations, but prepared to reward kids when their expectations are met. It tends to reinforce good behaviors that lead to positive, respectful parent-child relationships.
All I heard was authoritarian, and it reminded me of like an authoritarian government. Is it the same thing?
So that's authoritative. Authoritarian is different, it sounds. They take rules seriously and they want their kids to know it. They're not particularly warm, not keen on excuses, and expect obedience. This style can lead to a failure to bond emotionally as well as rebellious behavior, anxiety, and delinquency. These are just off of AmericanSPCC.org parenting style. So this is not my opinion. This is the opinion of this website. Just to define the parenting styles. Then you have permissive. It says they're enablers, but comes from a place of genuine love. They want their kids to enjoy their childhood, so they're less likely to enforce rules and more likely to provide toys and let bad behavior slide. Uninvolved, I think we all know that. They're not involved in their child's life, physically, emotionally, or both. That's really sad. I don't like that at all. Attachment.
How do you just choose? You know, if you're pregnant, you're like, my type of discipline or parenting is just going to be non-existent. I'm just going to let them live their lives in my home. But
my version of parenting is just not to.
Yeah, right, exactly. I would like to unsubscribe. Like, what? Like, if you're going to have a child, like, I feel like you need some form of order, maybe. I don't know.
There's a couple crazy ones in here, but there are a couple more I want to, because I know some people will resonate with some of this stuff. The attachment style parenting, secure for baby, but demanding for parents. Attachment means co-sleeping, sling carriers, and absolutely no crying it out. To like have an emotional bond. I think that I definitely did that with at least Charlotte at CC a little bit. Gentle parenting. Everyone makes mistakes, and gentle parents make it a priority to be understanding and maintain a good relationship with their child. Free range. I love when people talk about free range parenting like they're chickens.
I was about to say like their children are chickens. Just let them out. Let them out into the fields, you know?
But I do think that there's a really good developmental psychology behind free range parenting. It says hesitant to overprotect free range parents don't want to shelter their kids too much. Within reason, they advocate letting them roam and encourage their belief in their own abilities. So in order to do this, you cannot have debilitating anxiety.
Children are chickens, everyone. Children are chickens.
Just let them roam.
Let's let them
protect them from the bears,
the foxes. Put them in the children coop outside. Let them. If they're happy, if they're happy, they bring you more toys.
We have one more, well, two more, but one more. Helicopter parents hover around their children, poised to protect them from any perceived harm. This is what you do when you have debilitating anxiety. Like me, you watch your kid go to the playground, and instead of just letting them figure it out, you're 3 steps behind them the entire time, just in case one day they want to walk off of the edge of the playground.
How dare they go onto the lawn? Like, wait a minute.
It's so hard.
I think that this is one area that my husband excels at, which is not the helicopter parenting. He believes that you should give them enough space that you can see them, but you cannot hear them talk. So I have really started to try to do that because I too have debilitating anxiety when it comes to my children. I don't want them to get hurt when they're on the park slide or anything like that. However, I do realize that if I'm always there, they're never going to try to figure out things for themselves. So I started with the helicopter. I was always standing right by them like, honey, don't fall. Honey, don't do this. Honey, don't do that. And I'm just worried that they're just going to walk up to me with like a smashed face or something like that because they fell. But I do try to stay back.
Or they pick up a dead
dead
mouse.
mouse or a piece of poo,
Yeah.
So I
You let
have,
him walk away for 1 minute.
right, exactly. So I have tried to like stay back a little bit. Like Michaela and I, sidebar, just went to the park the other day. We went to a farm. It was lovely. I only had one child, so it was a little bit easier on me, I think, to just have one and just be like, okay, go, because I only had to keep my eyes on one kid. And I felt like I just kind of like let him. There was, I mean, this is obviously an extreme. Don't let your children near electrical fences. But there was electrical fences that I feel like I would have probably had a small panic attack about if I had two of them. But I'm like, he's not going to touch it. He'll be fine. He'll be fine. And he was fine. And everything was great. But I think if you had asked me to do that with Lorenzo 2.5 years ago, there was no way. I would have been like, he's going to get electrocuted.
I also think you have to meet the kids where they're at, and as you have your second and third, fourth kid, if you choose that route, they are all little snowflakes. They are all very different. One does not work for both. I'm telling you. I can ask Charlotte to stop jumping on the couch and she will get down, and then I ask Cecilia and she'll keep jumping and then she'll laugh at me. So there are different ways I have to navigate those situations without the kids being like, "Oh, you're treating her differently than me." But there's a show. If you're a parent listening, you've probably heard of or watched the show The Parent Test on Netflix. I'm waiting for a season 2.
It was a great show. Like,
It was a great show, and I think that it's still reality TV, so some stuff and situations were probably a little bit staged or, scripted, but it really does show you how parenting styles, I think, reflect the parent more than the child, and what the parent wants out of the child and out of their life. So going back to your question, like how did I grow up? I think it was between like authoritative and authoritarian, in that my parents were not my friends, they were my parents. And it was kind of what they said goes. And there was no pushback. We weren't allowed to have any pushback. Um, and I mean, we grew up to be great kids. We're all wonderful. But I think back in that time, that was a very popular form of parenting because everybody did the same thing. If your kid wasn't listening, they didn't really have a choice, and whatever you said was that was it. That was the rule.
yeah.
You could make the rules up on the spot, and that was the rule. And you, as a kid, you had to follow that rule. I think I got a hand to the butt, like maybe if I was running in the street or, doing something dangerous that we all know is not something that kids should be doing. Soap in the mouth when I swear words, hot sauce. I joke about I had hot sauce in my mouth as a kid for like swearing and talking back. And now hot sauce doesn't really face me.
You have very
So
high
thank you,
tolerance.
Mom and Dad.
High tolerance for Cholula.
Did you ever get soap in the mouth?
I did not. I think my parents have admitted to spanking or hitting me once, and I think it was because I tried to put something in an electrical socket. So
It was probably like second nature to just.
right, and I do feel that.
Yeah.
Like when Raphael loves electricity, fire, like he's just going to be, yeah, it's going to be a real issue. But I remember, like, I watched him like grab a plug, okay, something that does in fact go in the electrical socket. I watched him like toddle his way over to an electrical outlet and go to put it in there, and my whole body was like, no, like slow motion, like don't do it. But now the world has gotten slightly more convenient and smarter since my time putting a fork in an electrical outlet. And nowadays, every house, I think, past a certain year must be constructed with child safe electrical outlets. So, would something have happened? Probably. But it would have been a lot harder to get that thing in there. So, if he really worked at it, he could do it. I think I grew up with, I don't know, authoritative, where
Yeah, I think we all did.
I think it was kind of just like the norm. And you could tell, like, the kids that were given the free range parenting, you were like, oh wow, you can have parties at your house. You're 11, and you're like, that's a different type of parent. And
Yeah.
I don't think I was
Your mom just lets you go get popsicles out of the freezer all by yourself.
right. I don't have to ask. Like, what are you talking about? I used to walk into like my friends' houses that were like that and be like, I can just go. And it was so confusing to me.
And I think that we're not even at the point yet where these parenting styles really come into play. And toddlerhood is one thing, but they're still trying to get their personalities in order. When like we're going to be walking into these parenting styles soon,
Oh, for
when kids
sure.
are hanging out with other kids and your kid is questioning, "Mom, why can they do this and I can't do this?"
Yeah.
But
Why does Jimmy's dad have a wooden spoon hanging in the doorway? Oh, Jimmy's dad means business.
back in my day,
Back in my day. You know what I don't see in kitchens anymore is the
wooden
style
spoon.
wooden spoons. I have the silicone. How do you pronounce silicone? I don't know. Silicone spatulas because they're just like, easier and easier to clean. But I remember like the everlasting threat of if you do something bad, you're going to get the spoon. But I don't think that came from my parents. I think my grandparents actually said that to me.
Yeah,
I just don't remember my parents.
It was the grandparents' generation, and it wasn't even spoons; it was paddles.
Oh, I definitely had never heard of the pad. I definitely heard of the spoon
The
for sure.
Oh yeah, I've seen the paddles.
Well, yes, I have actually seen the paddles as well. And yeah, I don't think I was ever threatened with the spoon. Or maybe I was threatened with the spoon, but I'd never seen the actual wooden spoon come out of the kitchen drawer. So
Would you say that physical punishment like spanking is outdated?
I'd love to say it, but I don't think that it is. I think my husband came from a house of physical punishment and or maybe just like an over like more of the family was more about that, and spanking was definitely something that happened in his house and or maybe in his family. And even now, like, he jokes, like, I would like to point that out, we have never hit or spanked our kids or anything like that. And there's, if you choose that method of parenting, that's fine. But I will say that he definitely threatens it. But what's a threat if you don't know what happens? So he'll go like, do you want a spanking? And I think he's joking, and like my kids don't know what that is. So they'll go, yeah, I want a spanking. I'm like, you don't want that. Like, I promise, Lorenzo, stop egging him on. I don't think that it's something that works or doesn't work. I think if you use it the way that maybe it was intended, it might.
So one day when I was over, you used I have on our outline the countdown method.
Ugh.
I remember you used it once, and I'm like, I'm gonna try that. And I think I installed the fear of God into my daughter the second time it happened, and she knew I meant business. And it was almost to the point where I'm like, this is terrifying for her, and I had to stop.
Oh yeah, I stopped
it.
using it.
Yeah, I tried it for a minute, and it was not. She was stressed.
It actually dysregulates the parent too, or at least that's how I feel. So when I would I'm like,
I think that's what you, yeah.
1, 2, and then you're going and you're given the eyes. It actually should just be called the eye method, because when you get to 2, your eyes bug out of your head and you're like, don't fucking make me do this. And they do. They make you do it every time. They make you get the 3.
Speaking of like the eye parent, I feel like Derek and I are both reactive parents, to where we're going to react either verbally or like by picking the child up and putting them down like to something, where like you have the parents that just go like this with the eyes and their kids like listen.
Right.
Like how did you do? Can you do that again?
I think that
can I
that's a threat of something. Like, I'm not gonna say it, but if we go home and we shut that door to the house,
and they don't even yell. That's the really impressive part is their kids listen just by the eyes. I don't know, do you just, like, get really close to them and say,
Listen, I need you to just focus and pay attention.
and then you give them the eyes, and they're like, "Okay, I'm so sorry."
I'm so sorry.
How does that
I
work?
don't know. I do feel like I do have the buggy eyes sometimes, and sometimes it does work, but it's definitely like maybe like only 20% of the time right now. Do you like timeouts?
So, I think we talked about this on another episode about, like, if there is hitting or pushing or something, the only time I will take Charlotte out of the situation and set her in her room is when there's physical violence or someone is hurt and it's, like, purposeful. Like, "No, I know you just body slammed your sister because you were both running at each other. I'm not gonna put you in a room for that." But when you take the little Melissa and Doug blender and whack her in the head because she doesn't give you the cap, then I will take it from you and I put her in her room. And that's where the daycare strategy comes in is I will take a deep breath first because I usually wanna yell and scream, but I will tell her we have to take a break. And I will pick her up. She was probably kicking and screaming, which is so frustrating. And I want to yell at that point again. But I've gotten really good at just taking her in her room, setting her on her little blue chair, saying, "This is why you're in your room. Take a second. When you're ready to come play, come back and ask your sister if she's okay." And that's it. And usually it fixes it. And we don't get another blender to the head for another week.
Oh, well, good. I'm happy it's only 7 days in between head injuries.
Do I yell? Yes. I think it's really important for other moms and parents to know that I think all of us have lost our shit on our kids by raising our voice. And if you haven't, you're a blessing. And once it starts, it's hard to stop.
I agree. It's opening the floodgates. I think that
It is.
I think the timeout method for me really hits home because I definitely was sent into timeout. And now, as an adult, I can confidently say that when I need to work through a problem or I'm upset, I need to go and be alone. But that's really difficult with a partner who wants to talk
With a spouse.
everything through. So,
Yeah.
as someone who definitely got timeouts when she was younger and was sent to her room to think about what she did, it doesn't work as an adult. At least it doesn't work in my relationship. Maybe it does work for some people, but I feel like I should be able to just take a deep breath and work through the problem in the environment that I was in when the problem happened instead of being moved to another environment because it's like I can't even handle the emotion in that second. I have to leave. And whether that's healthy or not, who knows? That is a topic for my therapist.
And you see, psychology tells us that we don't want to put our kids in a disciplinary timeout in their room because that's supposed to be their safe
Right.
spot. And I think it has to do with the act of getting them to their room and how exactly you handle the situation. Because if you're yelling and you pick them up and you put them in your room and you're yelling at them and you close the door, like that's intense. Um, I have done that, and I know that that's not healthy for either Charlotte or myself. So that's why I've been doing the quick little, "This is why you're here. Take a deep breath. Join us when you feel like you can play friendly." But at daycare, she just puts them like in the same room, like on the couch or like in a spot where they're still involved.
I think that one of the best things that people are doing now, and this is something that I'm so excited to see how this pans out in the next 10, 15 years, is teaching kids the words for the emotions that they're feeling when they're younger. So if they're sitting there
Oh
and
yeah.
they can't open a water bottle and they're struggling and a lot of kids just throw the water bottle and we take that as them being defiant or something. No, they're frustrated. They can't open it. So they get mad. And I don't know if it
And they're throwing the water bottle to show you that it's
right.
frustrating instead of just saying, "Hi, help me."
Right. And like maybe they have a hard time asking for help, or maybe you didn't hear them the first 45 times they asked, or something like that. But, I took a huge win, 2 weeks or something like that ago. Lorenzo walked up to me. There was no anger in his face. There was no impatience. It was just, "Mommy, I'm frustrated." And I'm like, that's
Yep.
a Huge word. Everyone give Lorenzo a freaking high five, medal, great job, speech therapy kid, frustrated, okay? And I'm like, what are you frustrated about? And he goes, Raphael isn't giving me that toy. And I'm like, whoa, we are.
Instead of grabbing it out of
Instead
his
of grabbing it.
hands, he came to you.
Exactly.
Yep.
So I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my gosh. So teaching the words for the exact emotion, I think, is just going to change an entire generation of human beings to be able to say, like, I am
Yes.
frustrated, I am angry, I am lonely, I miss you. Like those types of wordings versus just sitting in the room and internalizing everything. Hello, hi, me is, a thing of the past, hopefully.
And it's important to like pay attention to them too. We had a friend come over yesterday and her 2 kids. And so now Charlotte has to share her toys in her own space, and one of them was this pot that they were cooking in, and it goes to the Love Every like scales, and there's 2 of them. And she wanted to play with the scales, but both her sister and her friend had the 2 pots. So I said, after like when they're done, we can play with the scale. And she was so upset. I'm like, Charlotte, we're not playing with the scale. She was upset. She went to her sister's room. She sat down, and I walked in there with her because she did that by herself. And I said, I got on her level. I looked at her and I asked her what was wrong. And I really spent time with her trying to figure out how we were going to move from that. It wasn't just a get over it or we're going to play with it later or stop crying about it. I made sure that she knew that I was there to listen to her. And that's so important when they're in that vulnerable state. They really want you to listen and they want you to hear their frustration. And if we can't give them those 5 minutes to work through that with them, they're not going to be able to do it on their own. Like we're there to guide them.
I agree with all of that.
There are some strategies that I have come up with the help of the internet. Um, if you're an overwhelmed parent and you're trying to figure out, I mean, ages 2, 3, and I'm hearing 4, 5 get easier, but ages 2 and 3 are very impressionable. And I think that it's the hardest time to navigate what to do when your child misbehaves. And here are a couple ideas for your parents and ourselves, because I know we're still navigating this.
We've got the Google, you guys.
Especially with our second,
yeah, seriously.
with our second child.
If anyone has tips and tricks on how to get their second to listen, that would be invaluable.
The first kind of just listens by default, but the second one,
honestly, it's just all chaos over here. So,
but it's just be consistent. Consistency, and that's so important in all aspects of parenting. If you're going to sleep train or not sleep train, be consistent. Don't go back and forth. If you're going to make them eat at the table and not the couch, then you can't let them eat on the couch 2 days a week and then the table 5 days a week. And then when they want to eat on the couch, you tell them no. Like there has to be clear-cut consistency. And if we're going to do timeouts for bad behavior, you continue to do timeouts for bad behavior so that you're not confusing the child on what steps and what's going to happen next in their day-to-day. Makes it feel more predictable. The next one is stay calm.
Wow. That's
hard.
That's like my husband going, just calm down. When like I'm just losing my mind.
Relax.
Like, just relax. And I'm like, oh yeah, wow, I didn't think of that. I'll just relax.
But we have to tell ourselves that it's not the child's fault you're angry. It is your fault you're angry. And that might be a hard hitter for some people to hear. But your child can make you frustrated, but don't act on that and punish the child because you can't calm yourself down. And like Patty said, you need a 15-minute timeout, take a 15-minute timeout. Throw the baby monitor in the living room, go to your room, shut the door, recollect, and go back and try again. It is important.
I'm actually looking up ideas right now on Pinterest on what I will be incorporating into my cozy corner as an adult.
You needed one of those giant bean bags. I'm getting one of those bean bags that you put stuffed animals in.
Yeah, I have one of those.
The stuffed animals aren't everywhere.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, and then you need like the squishy ball to squish.
I want one of those like giant weighted blankets, like a stress ball, soundproof headphones, and just the giant beanbag. I'm just gonna be like, Mommy's taking a timeout. I might fall asleep there. Might actually just be my bedroom. just the overwhelming calmingness of the cozy corner.
Honey, where's our bed? Actually,
Actually.
what I had planned on is a cozy room instead of a bedroom. Next is reinforce the good behavior. And this can be like the reel that I just posted about soft hands. We're at the stage now, 18 months to 24 months, I think, is just the age where they like to hit and they like to drop and they like to throw. They're exploring gravity and sensation. And by starting with gentle hands or soft hands before they get to the stage where they're smacking you and reinforcing like that when they do start smacking you positively is so helpful and beneficial. So do you have any other examples of like reinforcing good behavior?
Oh my god. If I come up with any, I'll let you know. I think that okay, this is not good of me. It really isn't. However, I will say that if they do something good, I will give them something that they want, which doesn't always work in the best way. And this is just personally, this is just anecdotally, like we're currently in potty training right now. There's thousands of ways that you can do potty training. The world is your oyster with potty training techniques. And exactly as you mentioned, every child is a snowflake. Lorenzo, I had 3 days, everything worked perfectly. He didn't give me any trouble. Raphael did it perfectly for a week and then stopped. And now he just will not go on the potty unless he gets a little treat afterwards. And I don't know how that started, but it's working. And I know he won't need a chocolate every single time after he goes to the potty. And like, I'd just like to point out that you are not supposed to discipline your children if they don't go in the potty. So this is kind of a dotted line to our conversation. But I do use that positive reinforcement of like, hey, you did a great job here. Mommy's proud of you. Here's a coconut ball. And yeah.
Coconut ball.
And like it's thrilling for them, and like for Lorenzo, he's not we're comparing our children to chickens at the beginning of this and also dogs now because I feel like food
and snowflakes
so I think that a lot of the discipline is, I mean, not similar, but he's very food oriented, food motivated, Raphael. And
yeah,
Lorenzo is
me too, Raphael.
Yeah, right. Ditto. I'll take some pizza. Lorenzo is more praise oriented. Like he loves to be proud of himself. So, the clapping really works for him. Or like, hey, you did a great job today being nice to your brother. Mommy's going to give you a couple extra minutes on the tablet. And he knows like if I'm good or if I'm nice or, if I'm doing that kind of stuff, like I will, it'll come back to me. I don't see it as like, it's almost like karma. Like, great job. You didn't hit your brother today.
I mean, personally, I don't think that that's a bad thing. I best laid plans, going back to our last episode. I wasn't going to do the M&M method or the Skittles method with Charlotte. And then she turned 3. I'm like, you still aren't potty trained. 3 years and 3 months comes around. I'm like, all right, well, we're going to try the crunchy knockoff version of M&Ms. And it worked. It worked for her. We'll see what happens when Cece starts potty training. But I'm like, well, it works.
Yep.
And I don't want to spend $40 on pull-ups anymore per month. $40, $80.
Who does?
So the next strategy here is to give consequences. And I think this is just reiterating like being consistent with rules. Like if you throw that ball at my head, I will take all the balls from this house and incinerate them. No, I will take them and I will put them away.
No. I like that first one. I'm going to incinerate them. Yes.
I do see parents saying things like, if you don't clean up your toys, they're going in the garbage. And I know the intention is there and the intention is positive, but I think that instills kind of like a fear. But if unless you're actually throwing the toys away, then fine, do it, throw the toys away. Yep. But if you're going to threaten, you need to follow through because then it just becomes an empty threat, and then that doesn't lead to, in my opinion, doesn't lead to the most productive behavior.
I think that
But
and do it and blah, blah, blah. Unpause. I think that keeping to your word and doing an appropriate consequence is important. So they say natural consequences, right? A kid doesn't want to put on their coat in the middle of January in Michigan. You don't have to discipline for that because guess what? The chill, frigid air will do that for them. Hey, buddy, put your coat on as you're walking out the door. You're not going to force that coat on them. You're going to say, okay, then, no coat. And they'll walk outside and they'll realize they need it, right? That's not discipline. That's just more of like this is why I was telling you to do this.
But then, yes, but then I'm going to take a step further. And when they're like, Mommy, I'm cold, what you do is you offer them their jacket and you don't say, well, I told you to put a jacket on. Now you're just cold. Like, give them their jacket. They get it.
They get it now.
It's cold. Don't punish them for trying to figure out how life works through their own eyes.
Accurate.
Listen. This is the next one. Listening is important. I think a lot of times we are distracted by cooking and cleaning and dishes and working and on the phone, off the phone, and our children are trying to tell us things, and we like, Charlotte, go away, I'm cooking, or Charlotte, Mommy's folding clothes, I'll be there in a minute. Like, sometimes you really just need to stop and, like, what do you need? Because I know a lot of bad behavior and acting out can just stem from wanting the attention of the parents. And if you're not giving them those little check-ins throughout the day, if you're home or throughout the evening when you get home from daycare and school, then they're going to make sure that you give them their attention. And it won't be as pleasant.
All accurate.
The next one is give attention, kind of just what I just said. Know your triggers. Yes. My trigger is screaming. Blood-curdling screams. And you know what I just did? I just bought a pair of earplugs.
Loops.
So that I can still...
Did you buy loops?
No, I didn't. They were too expensive. I just bought, like, the ones that you use in the pool when you don't want water in your ear, just so I can still hear. But then I can walk into the situation of Cecilia at night, which she's very, very relentless, hates to be asleep. And I can still cuddle her and hug her and rock her while she's screaming without feeling like I want to set her down and go scream myself.
Gosh.
Because that, I think it's like the pitch of the scream, but it's like, it makes me so angry.
It's like nails on a chalkboard.
And that's not fair to her. It is.
And it's not because I don't think it's really that you're bothered by this. It's your body. Your body is reacting. You're a mother and you're like,
my fight or flight. Yes.
And that's supernatural.
And if you had a colicky baby for 8 months and the screams were, you can have a little bit of PTSD.
Absolutely. I can.
When your baby cries.
I can agree with that as well.
The last one here, Patty, is show respect. How do you think you can show respect to 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds?
Don't call them names. I say that.
She's serious, but
I'm serious. My little one is a very chonky chonk. He's a very chonky baby. And I told myself I would stop body shaming my 2-year-old when he turned 2. But he's so chonky. And it's just like and like, I know it's probably not causing any like significant permanent damage right now. However, his brother is starting to call him chonky. And I'm like, oh, no, we have to stop now. Like, we don't need you walking into preschool and calling people chonky.
Yeah.
But right? Exactly. Thank you. Mother of the year.
Lorenzo, why'd you get in trouble today? I called my teacher chonky.
Exactly. But it's a loving word. I'm like, you're right, but not to your teacher. It's not. I think this is it's not a hard one, but it's tough for a kid to understand what respect is with all of the adults that come into their lives, right? I think it's just, if they listen to mom and dad, it kind of filters through the rest of society where there'll be a little bit more hesitation maybe, or shyness, or what's the word? reservations when they're strangers, but just hi, bye. That's as
Thank
thank
you.
you, please, that kind of stuff. I think that showing them how to be a human in society is super important, with also keeping their personality in check and not forcing them into any sort of uncomfortable
And I think
situation.
that with kids, my perspective is just treat them the way you want to be treated as an adult, and that's hard for some people because they're a child and you're an adult. But I remember the other day, Charlotte was going to the bathroom, and I was going to turn the light on, and she slammed the door, and I'm like, "Hello, like, why did you slam the door? It's dark in there. Do you need me to turn the light on?" She's like, "No, Mama, I got it. I need some privacy." And usually she will, like, go to the bathroom with the door open, but lately I have wanted to go to the bathroom with the door closed myself for the first time in 3 years.
Wow.
And I think she's like, she wants that privacy. I'm like, "Okay, well, I make her stand on the other side of the door. I guess I'm gonna do the same for her." 'Cause they learn from you, and they learn from your body language and your behavior. So, treat them how you wanna be treated and exhibit the behavior that you want them to exhibit back to you.
Michaela's answer was way better
Uh
than mine. I'd just like to point that out. So 10 out of 10.
I have done a lot of, like, I'm very self-aware to the point where it's actually scary and unhelpful sometimes, but we all wanna just, raise our kids the best way humanly possible. We don't wanna frick up our kids. Everyone, I feel like, feels that weight. Um, but at the end of the day, you can do everything you want to do for your kids, and they could still be fricked up.
We're all causing
Just kidding.
some
You're
form.
supposed to laugh. You're supposed to laugh.
We're
The listeners are gonna be like, "What?"
we're all. This is why companies like Headway exist. This is why online therapy is so prevalent right now, because it doesn't matter.
We're all in the
We're
same
all in the
boat.
same boat. We're all paying copays to a therapist in the year 2024. Okay, we got a lot of issues we got to get through.
And stay off the internet, stay off of Facebook. Don't join permissive parenting groups and helicopter parenting groups. Like, if you need someone to relate to, I get it, but you're gonna be sometimes it can just skew your even perception of your own intuition with your own children.
All
Just
true.
do what you feel is right. And if you feel like you want to scream, that is wrong and you need to seek therapy. I say this in the most lighthearted way possible because I also need to seek therapy for my
Screaming.
my temper, my screaming.
Oh,
Yes, I do. And I will, and we're getting there.
slowly but surely.
But
The first step is admitting you have a problem. And we, in fact,
I have several problems. Remember, I'm very self-aware.
so many problems. Oh, goodness gracious. Did we have any listener information this week, or any listener, what's the word? Reflection, I guess.
Yes, I have someone say that when they grew up, they were in a gentle parenting household, and after they broke their arm as a kid, now they are a helicopter parent on the playground, so that their kids don't get injured.
See?
That's some trauma.
Okay, so like you can have this is just throwing it back to like our best laid plans episode. You go into it thinking you're going to be one way, and yeah, your kid could be totally fine, and you get through your parenting journey and everything works out, but then it's they over rotate the other way. So who knows? I just everything's made up and we're all in a simulation.
And if you have ever, like, I didn't yell at my kid. I did not even raise my voice for a second at Charlotte until her sister was around for like 6 to 8 months, and then I lost it once, and I never forgave myself. I cried about it. I was upset. If you're in that stage right now, like, it's okay. Your kid's gonna be fine if you lost your shit for a couple seconds. But the more important part of it is admittance to your child. Mommy or daddy is working on their feelings too. You didn't deserve to be yelled at, and I'm sorry. I think the after conversation is
Yes.
more important than that initial blow up.
I agree. I think that the initial, the apology from the parent is huge because I mean, I don't know if my parents apologized that much. Maybe I can remember it.
Mine
Yeah,
didn't.
like once in a while. Like I think they knew that they were wrong, but even now, like if I get upset and I raise my voice, I will immediately walk into Lorenzo's room and say, "I'm sorry."
Yeah. My last little point, and I want to make now that you just said that, is what would happen is my mom would send us to our rooms, but then my dad would come in and bail us out. So if I have another piece of advice for parents, whoever puts the child into the room is the parent that takes the child out, unless you've agreed upon that separately.
Smart.
Because if mom's always putting the kid in the room and dad's always getting the kid out, well then dad's the fun parent and mom's the strict one.
I never thought of it like that. Huh.
Yeah. They're like, "Oh, dad's here to save me."
Interesting.
Daddy, mommy put me in my, like, you know what I mean? So, and you always have to be on the same terms as your partner. If you are choosing to do a certain type of parenting style, you should absolutely be on the same page with your partner, because that will make the two of you argue a lot.
It's you, your partner, against the children. Don't let anyone tell you
say
otherwise.
All the time now.
Yep.
Use it, manifest it, and the next time your partner snaps at you or you snap at your partner, Derek literally says to me now, "It's not you and me against each other, it's us against them," and it snaps me out of whatever delusional thing I wanted to say next to him because he was making me upset.
I say that to Christy.
Oh, I loved this one. This was fun.
This is a fun one. Today I learned that I need to discipline my kids more.
Today I learned children have chicken coops.
Chicken coops, yes, and they're basically dogs. So that's
also snowflakes.
And snowflakes. So we have farm animals, regular domesticated animals, and types of precipitation. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Hit the subscribe, follow, like button, leave us a comment on any of our socials. We love hearing from everybody. And as usual, Michaela, I don't know what we have next week. So if you could comment on that, that would be great.
Yeah, the next episode is kind of having to do with this episode, but it is a little broader. It's just how to handle your shit.
Oh God, how do you handle your shit? I don't want to handle any shit.
How do you handle the shit?
I don't want to handle any shit, but
we'll talk about it next week.
Sounds great. We hope you all laughed, learned something, and pop in next week for another great episode. Bye.
See ya.